If there's one thing I hate more than Merfolk, it's more Merfolk. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Cesar has asked me to build around Deeproot Pilgrimage and Opposition. More on that one in a second, but let's start here. Whenever one or more non-token, that word's important, whenever one or more non-token Merfolk you control becomes tapped, create a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token with hexproof. So kind of conceptually, the idea with this deck is going to be you attack with a Merfolk, you make a new Merfolk. And if you have some lures that can pump up your Merfolk, well, you can start making not just 1/1s, but 2/2s or 3/3s even. And conceptually, when we think about what you get for 2 mana in Legacy, we should be thinking about, like, how many tokens does this need to be before we feel like I've gotten our value? And while it's not quite a 1-for-1, I think Orcish Bowmasters is actually a really good comparison here, because this is 2 mana, 2 bodies with some other effects. And if our Deeproot Pilgrimage is making us 2 Merfolk with hexproof for 2 mana, that's pretty respectable. And I think once you start getting past 2 bodies being produced, it starts looking pretty good. But, and we'll probably find this out over the course of the league, what percentage of the time is that actually going to happen versus, it just not doing a ton? In hopes of making it do a ton, we are going to be playing Opposition today. Now, maybe unless you're a cube player or, a real magic boomer, you maybe haven't seen this card in action, but it is surprisingly deadly. So you can tap an untapped creature you control to tap target artifact, creature, or land. So what this means is, let's say you have 5 creatures. Your opponent probably doesn't have more than 5 lands. You can spend the rest of the game tapping down all of your opponent's lands so they can't really play spells, and you can crash in with whatever of your creatures are left. And every time you tap down a permanent with one of your non-token Merfolk, you will go and create another Merfolk token with Deeproot Pilgrimage, which you can then use to tap more stuff. Yo fish, I heard you like tapping, so we put taps in your taps so you can tap while you tap. It's going to be that sort of league. Now, there is a third component to this challenge, because the donor realized, these cards maybe don't fit into a normal Merfolk list. So we were asked to make it a Yorion Merfolk deck list and go up to 80 cards in the main deck so we could justify putting these other cards in. Let's take a look at what I came up with here. I'm going to start with the sideboard off screen because I need a lot of room to work here. I have a lot of things to talk about. So there were some challenges in putting together this deck list. Number 1, conceptually, if you want to play Deeproot Pilgrimage, you want to have a 1-mana Merfolk that you play before it, at least in a decent portion of the games. But we live in a format with Orcish Bowmasters, where if you are just playing X1 small creatures, you're going to have a bad time. Even if you can grow them later, you don't want to, anytime your opponent is on the play, just give them the opportunity to just Bowmaster your creature. So I tried to play some 1-drop Merfolks that either likely are already scaled up or can scale up further. There are other options for these slots. These were the ones that I thought were best. Maybe I should be running more 1-drops than this. And if I'm going to play this, I'm going into green, which I think I already wanted to do to have a higher density of lords. And my Discord talked me into running Kumena, Tyrant of Orazca instead, or in addition, which is another way to just tap Merfolk and get advantage out of your Deeproot Pilgrimage. There are a lot of things I'm unsure about in terms of deck construction, because, A, Merfolk isn't a deck. B, Yorion Merfolk, also not really a deck. C, Yorion Merfolk Deeproot Opposition, definitely not a deck, but we're trying. So, things that I'm thinking about in no particular order. Number 1, I don't really know how to build the mana base for this deck. because these creature type lands that are, effectively just additional copies of Tropical Island in this deck list are pretty solid, but they are not going to contribute to the blue pips for casting this or opposition. And I am occasionally going to need some degree of interaction from my deck rather than just having every creature in the deck be a Merfolk and every card just being fully Merfolk themed. And these aren't going to contribute colored mana to anything else that I need to cast. So I don't know where that balance is. And the way to find that balance is jam some games. I'm not sure how many basics to play. Every basic is something that does not cast this card on turn 1 or does not cast, spoiler, a turn 1 Flusterstorm. Or rather, these don't cast turn 1 Flusterstorm. So, like, even though it's a monocolored mana base, there is going to be... Well, okay, it's a 2-colored mana base, but it's primarily a mono blue mana base. Like, there's going to be some tension for adding that second color. And kind of on that note, I'm not sure if I get to play any, like, colorless utility lands, be that, like, Urza's Saga, Mutavault, anything of that general nature. I'm not really sure how to fit those in. I'm taking, like, the ballpark 33 lands that we see from a Death and Taxes deck and using that as my baseline here. So from there, we have a decent number of lords. Bodalian Hexcatcher, in theory, should work pretty well with additional Merfolks. That just gives us kind of extra mana ties on spells, which sounds pretty cool. And then the sideboard is largely targeted towards various combo decks. I didn't play Daze in this deck, like we are trying to work towards 4 mana actively. One other omission from this deck list is True Name Nemesis, which was in the original draft, and then people wanted me to play the Spice, and honestly, I get it. So let's see how this feels. I imagine that there will be some bumps in this league, but hopefully we do the thing a few times. And if you like what you see today, please consider checking out Cool Stuff Inc. and using promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit of money on your order. And if you have a sweet brew or deck that you want to see on the channel, remember you can always find my deck lists as well as my donation deck list information in the video descriptions. Let's battle. Okay, I've kept my opening hand here. With only 8 1-drops in the deck, I don't think I just always get to have access to them. I have multiple lords here and a force of will to disrupt any sort of combo-based nonsense. This is reasonable. All right, here we go. We've got 1 force of will to get through whatever is about to happen. Potentially like Cephalid Breakfast, in which case this becomes, oh. Well, that's uncounterable. Some sort of, like, Ephemerate pile. I vaguely remember there being some bullshit combo deck. Okay, all right. Now I see what's up. Counter non-creature spells. If I kick Tideshaper, I can turn this into an island, and then Force of Will is live to counter Thassa's Oracle and Friends. I think I'm into it. So let's kick it. That's an island. Oh. Counter later? I think we counter later. It's awkward if there's yet another Cavern of Souls. Otherwise, this just, like, puts my opponent on a clock. Alright, anything interesting here? Thought Lash. I'll resolve this to kind of help me do my nonsense. Do you have evasion? No, you don't have evasion innately. Alright. Alright. Send them. I can see all the Cavern of Souls. So that should not be something that I have to worry about. You've got a Lotus Petal. There is a Thassa's Oracle. I'm going to respond to that. I guess Merfolk Trickster doesn't actually do anything, right? Because the trigger's already on the stack. So, Force of Will, itch Merfolk Trickster. I assume, yeah. So then I do this. I'm going to attempt to counter your Force of Will, sacrificing this. You can pay sacking the Lotus Petal, and then I sacrifice this to counter the Force of Will, and that should do it. Daze is fine. Goodbye, Thassa's Oracle. Hello, win for Merfolk. This is a pretty big moment. This is the first game of Magic that any Merfolk deck ever has actually won, so we should celebrate this. I'm probably gonna want some number of other counter spells. Force of Negation in particular is quite good. Flusterstorm helps to win fights, but Flusterstorm only fights over instants and sorceries and doesn't hit some things that Force of Negation might hit. It's too fast of a matchup for opposition. Dismember, for the most part, is not going to do stuff. Brazen Borrower, for the most part, is not going to do stuff. This is probably slow as well. That's going to get me these and some Flusters, I think. This one, though. This one's real cute versus Thassa's Oracle. Oh, wait. We've got, what's that guy's name? Merfolk Trickster. Merfolk Trickster is not great here. It has the word Merfolk written on it, which is worth something. Let's get the Brazen Borrowers back in as some degree of interaction versus something weird. All right. Do I feel like I can just race my opponent? Just turn one thing, turn two thing. I don't think I just keep the 5-lander. This is pretty respectable. Let's just pitch the expensive card here. I would love to draw one of my 8/1 drops here, but that's probably pretty obvious. That is a bottom with that Preordain. I'll pass the turn. I'm unsure whether or not I'm flustering aggressively currently. Like, the fluster is good this turn, and it's good again on turn 3 and beyond. Okay, I am not asked that question currently. I think I just need to attempt a threat here. I could get dazed. I would be alright with that. And Impulse is fine. Sweet art. And we're in play. So beginning this turn, some scary things like Thought Lash can happen. And Thought Lash is an enchantment and doesn't do great. Like Fluster doesn't do great versus that. Going for a Paradigm Shift. I probably am supposed to attempt to counter that. I think I Fluster pitch Deeproot, but like Deeproot and the other Lord of Atlantis are pretty close. Okay, cool. It worked. Oh, well. Understood. I will have a Flusterstorm to my name to try to stop what my opponent does. That probably doesn't get there. Like, my Fluster doesn't counter Thassa's Oracle. I think we're dead. Well, fuck my counter spells. Wouldn't have worked anyway. Yeah. That'll do. Their Merfolk is big booty Thassa's Oracle. 3/5. In case you're not aware why that was happening. This is other Merfolk, not Merfolk you control. Old templating. My opponent tries to go off in that same fashion, like a Dismember can disrupt. Maybe a Dismember is more reasonable than a Brazen Borrower, just as cheaper interaction to hold up. Well, I don't think I ever mulligan a hand that has this card. Let's play a slow game here. I think I'm not going to cast any spells for a very long time. Like, I'm not going to Fluster something like this. Like, this Force of Will exists to protect this card when my opponent goes for a win. And I'm kind of just hoping to draw any Merfolk that I can play. Oh, they top-topped their cards as well. What about second Tishana's Tidebinder, though? Sure. We'll just fetch and pass. There's gonna be a silly little guy making land drops. Yep. Fuck that noise. I probably have to pitch the second one of these so I can keep Fluster to win a counterspell fight over that card, which is unfortunate. An opponent did not fight back, but I think it is just disastrous for me to not take precautions there. I do wish this was the Brazen Borrower right now. Just playing this as a 3-mana thing is fine. Yes, that occurs. We're going to name Merfolk, unsurprisingly. And my opponent, if they draw the defense grid this turn, can play it, and I have to Force of Will it. But they didn't. Alright. This is the greatest instance of Merfolk on Merfolk violence I've ever seen. Get out. Merfolk wins. Today's video is sponsored by Eminence Gaming. Their command tower software that they use to run events is awesome, and in January, I'm going to be attending another one of their events, The Boil, in Atlanta at Charlie's Collectible Show, which is, no joke, one of the coolest venues that I've ever played at. If you are interested in some CEDH and or meeting me, consider checking it out. Okay, I'm starting this round with a very good aggro hand, and I'll have to make a decision on turn 2 whether or not I am trying to go wide by creating more creatures with the Pilgrimage, or if I am trying to go tall and create some singular creatures that are hard to deal with. The big reason to play a Lord immediately is to help get creatures out of range of Orcish Bowmaster pings on turn 2. But I'm going to have to really resculpt my plan based on what my opponent does. Goblins, you say? Going wide probably makes sense then. Yeah, I think I play the Deeproot Pilgrimage. My opponent, as a mono-red or maybe black-red deck, is probably not going to be able to remove this. Let's not lose any life to fetch lands. All right. Let's see how this ends up doing. A quick note here on wording. This is worded 1 or more. So in the attack step, we will only ever get 1 additional Merfolk. Okay. So all signs are pointing towards like Sticker Goblin, Muxus, aggro nonsense. And we'll just kind of see how bad it is. Name Sticker Goblin low rolls. Battlecry Goblin is very good still. So there's just going to be the activation, and my opponent can swing in. I can beat fair Battlecry Goblin nonsense pretty easily, I think. Oh, I'll trade with Skirk here. That's fine. Take 7. I'm at 13. My opponent does not have true red mana, just a note here. Let's drop this. I think play the one with the more restrictive mana cost. Bash in for 2, which gives me another 2/2 here. Opponent's at 15. And I can try to stabilize the board in the next turn cycle or 2. I might be able to shift into the beatdown role. We'll see. A lot of this is dependent on whether or not my opponent has like another Sticker Goblin. If they have another Sticker Goblin and can just make a bunch of red and pump it into Battlecry Goblin, things might just be bad for me. I was a little surprised they attacked with the Skirk, because Skirk lets you jump to Muxus off current board. Oh no. Oh no. This card is obviously very strong. We have seen this absolutely wreck people on the channel. By people, I mean me. So this trigger happens. My opponent will now probably throw... Oh. Do I get to just double block broadside here? I thought my opponent wasn't going to give me that option. 2, 4, take 5. Yeah, I think I junk this. This menace is just a disaster for me. And my opponent can, like, throw a name Sticker Goblin. Oh no, I fucked up. I was sitting here thinking about my life total. my opponent can fling at the Lord to shrink this, and then my block is bad. I messed up. Hopefully my opponent doesn't catch it. They caught it. Fuck. Alright. Sure. Regardless of the mistake, I don't know that I'm beating the broadside. Like, the broadside just gets to keep killing these lords, and I can keep producing things, but not faster than my opponent kills them, and now this is also just damage. I'm out. I think I messed up, but I don't know that the mistake is super relevant. I think my opponent is just going to be a faster deck than I am 100% of the time. And my sideboard doesn't really do anything here. This just doesn't have enough raw gas here. This is not going to do it. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. So I think I need to keep all 3 lands and throw this back, despite the fact that this can do some really cool things. I think on turn 2, I want to have access to bounce Sticker Goblin with Brazen Borrower as well as play a Lord. Maybe I'm supposed to greed and throw back 1 land, but like in theory, this is a 1, 2, 3 curve that has 2 options for what I can play on turn 3. I think I'm going to go ahead and fetch a basic in case Blood Moon or Magus of the Moon is a consideration. I can play the game on a single island pretty well. And we're just playing this as a 1/1 Merfolk. Nothing fancy here. Okay, my opponent went in the tank for a while and then just did basic land pass. Goes on Merfolk. I think I need to respect Soul Land Sticker Goblin here by holding up my Brazen Borrower. So I will do so. We've got a Cavern Goblin. That's fine. Again, we're expecting Sticker Goblin here. Battlecry Goblin underneath. Alright, it is name Sticker Goblin. Let's go ahead and Petty Theft that back to hand. And then this fizzles the trigger. Now, I don't get to do that again, so whatever they can do just happens next turn. How the fuck does Merfolk Trickster interact with that ability and the stickers? Oh boy. Oh, right, there aren't stickers on Magic Online, so that I don't need to worry about whether or not like I remove sticker-based abilities. It's just not relevant. I think I am just bashing, unfortunately. I don't think that favors me. I also don't really think I can just turtle up, though. Alright. This is a big mana turn. Even if my opponent low rolls, they can still mux this, but they high rolled. Sure. And Battlecry Goblin to give everything haste. Oh, why? That's so much stuff. My opponent makes a token, attacks with broadside, and the token technically has to attack, but then they just throw the token at this. And then I'm just behind forever. This is so brutal. Like, I know my opponent high rolled there and everything, but even if they didn't quite roll that high, this card is just rough. Yeah, so there's the shoot, throwing the Chrome Mox to keep this alive. Like, I can play a Merfolk Trickster and tap this down, but I'm still just gonna get run over. We're not winning this matchup. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is, in my opinion, the best Magic the Gathering website for hosting your deck lists online. One of my favorite features is that you can create your own custom tags for when you're deck building. So let's say you're building a commander deck and you want to know, hey, how many copy effects do I have? You can just create a tag and sort everything, and there's fun little hotkeys so that you can do this more quickly. So really, please consider checking them out if you are looking to tinker with deck lists online. All right, I only have 1 land here. I think this one just has to go back for something a little more stable. Yeah, this is fine. I can't reasonably keep the opposition with this opening hand. Sorry, bud. Down you go. Please don't do it to me again. My poor frail heart can't take it. Master of the Pearl Trident. Okay, so am I playing this on turn 1 or this on turn 1? If I get Blood Mooned, I can't play any of these. Wait. Play this on turn 1. Because if I get Blood Mooned, I can Tide Shaper my mountain into an island. I believe that will be a timestamp based thing and work. Alright. Fuck, it's the same thing again. We're so screwed, YouTube. Oh, and the high roll. Fuck. Double fuck. Well, Merfolk confirmed bad, GG's. I can't do anything. What am I supposed to do? Like, conceptually, how am I supposed to win? I have exactly 4 removal spells in my deck. 2 of them are only bounce spells. Like, I have some degree of interaction. Like, is pile O2 drops fine? And I just try to make bigger creatures? My Deeproot Pilgrimage based hands were not working. No counterspells this game either. Alright. What if Island? What if Island? I think we are absolutely on the try to make things awkward for my opponent plan. Technically turns Force of Will back on, but my opponent just has red because Skirk is a thing. So I can still just get like Sticker Goblined this turn. Oh, a Spirit Guide. Okay. It's just a Ringleader. Which finds Muxus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With any land drop, my opponent has Muxus next turn. And they didn't attack to offer a trade for Tide Shaper. Alright. Hate this. I hate this so much. So this denies some mana. This is until this leaves the battlefield, so I guess I'm chilling. Just play another Ancient Tomb. Play another Ancient Tomb, I dare you. Coward. Okay, there's a Goblin Matron. Muxus is guaranteed next turn. Binding Broadside. Cool. Cool. So this one is on this cavern. If I block with this one, my opponent no longer has guaranteed Muxus anymore. They might just have another land, but hopefully that's fine. My top card will be Force of Will to punish me for blocking. Cavern O' Souls. Goes on Merfolk. I can stop Muxus and then my opponent just plays this. I think I am producing a Lord and holding up some flash abilities. Thanks, Sending. Opponent drops to 15. So the hope is that my opponent just plays a Broadside and I tap it down. Yes. So we get tricky. Tap Broadside. It loses that ability. Put that on Merfolk. Make a dude. Make a dude. This is 14 damage. Awkward. I'm going to kill you next turn. Can you kill me this turn? Let's find out. Okay. Muxus is no longer guaranteed. Opponent might have another land to make that so. Okay, they don't have enough. I don't know if my opponent played that one optimally. It feels like if they cast a Muxus, I die. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know what's in their hand. I don't get to change anything for sideboarding here. Am I willing to risk this hand? It has a Force of Will, which is like kind of Schrodinger's good, in that if my opponent doesn't have Cavernous Souls, it is the nuts. So like, if I draw a land in 2 draws, this is very strong. I don't have a good feel for how likely this is with Yorion decks. We should be like 70% to hit. I'm going to say that's good enough to keep. My opponent has also mulliganed once as well. That helps out a bit. I'm going to let that happen. I don't think it would be crazy person territory to force that. Not great at beating that currently. but I think I let it resolve. Like, I think this is a case where, like, this is bad, but other things are worse. I take some amount of damage from it. But I think as long as I draw a second land, or even just a tropical island, this is fine. This tropical island just means that this is immediately a 2/2. And then can trade with Goblin Rabblemaster or take out a token every turn. So we hit our 70%er like I needed us to. Fancy Mountain. I have to say no to that. Probably pitching Deeproot. This isn't good until I play this. Maybe I pitch Tide Shaper. Yeah. Pitch Tide Shaper. Yeah, my opponent wants to come in with Rabblemaster. I assume the answer is a resounding no. That's fine. I think Force of Will is my best draw. That's not bad. Merfolk. I think I am just going to drop this into play and turtle up. My opponent can attack with 2 goblin tokens this turn. I get block, and then it's just Rabblemaster. As long as my opponent's last card isn't Muxus, this isn't so bad. Okay, Rabblemaster comes in this time. Let's kill that and keep Lord of Atlantis around. I end up taking 1. All right, last card is not Muxus. That is fantastic. So now I think I start trying to produce extra bodies. And every time I tap Lord of Atlantis, it is going to create a 2/2. All right. So as long as my opponent draws badly, we've got this. That's probably fine. Like I am creating the larger creature every turn. I just clicked through that. That was just a mouse error. That's fine. It's obviously bad. I think I just attack with the Lord of Atlantis. My opponent maybe blocks. If they do, I flash this in. They don't. Do I still flash it in anyway? Probably. Let's do it. My opponent's up 1 goblin from what they should be. You make a thing. All right, Rabblemaster is going to continue to attack in. Let's go block, block, block. I should not be taking 1 damage this turn, but here we are. I'm at 12. Okay. Opponent perhaps not drawing well. Make our next land drop. Play a Merfolk. This leaves 2 blockers back. I think I am fine with that. I'm going to assume that my opponent has a land in hand, so I'm not going to consider Brazen Borrower, Bounce Chrome Mox, or anything like that to try to keep my opponent off of Muxus mana. We're just hoping to dodge like Muxus plus Cavern of Souls. If I bounce that, my opponent just replays it. So that occurs. Okay, yeah, there's the additional mana. And whatever this last card is, I Force of Will it. Yep. Force of Will, and my opponent is dead on board. And we somehow win. I don't understand it. I think we got very lucky. My opponent bricked on a lot of draws there. Okay, I do not believe that I am interested in this 1-lander. This is reasonable, and then I have to think if I want to discard 1 land or the Tishana's Tidebinder here. I'm going to say 1 land. I don't know that we're ever going to do anything with that Yorion. It exists for if we flood out, but now I wish I had the other land. Presumably playing against Delver. And Wasteland on this tropical island is a thing that is spooky. Okay, sure. They did one of those baubles targeted at each of us. And then they fetched away a card that they did not like to see. Sure. We want to, I think, offer up a mediocre card to Daze and Lightning Bolt. This is a much stronger card. And we want to play our worst land out first for the purposes of Wasteland. Yep. Note that I don't think Deeproot Pilgrimage necessarily gets dazed, so I did not use that as a bait spell. It's also just like very awkward sequencing to play that out early. Okay. I think I'm going to attempt to stifle fetch land. Oh, do it. That's fine. Please fetch. Damn it. Fetch now? Second main? Damn. I don't think my deck is good enough to hold up this mana for future turns. I think I just have to play this and then play Deeproot Pilgrimage and start trying to do aggressive-based things. I think that's just where I'm at. Ooh. That gives me something to do with the opposition. I don't think we're going to reach the point where that is currently reasonable. My opponent has 6 cards in hand. I just think between counterspells and other interaction, they are forcing. Do I want to force back? I think I do. It's a little weird because then I'm pants down to like Murktide Regent. I just don't have a defense. It's also just awkward like doing this when Lightning Bolt on this creature invalidates this card in the short term. But in the world where this does then resolve, these will be 2/2s with Island Walk. Yeah. All right. Yeah, this was kind of the problem with this fight. And it's just like really rough if my opponent can follow this with a Murktide. What are you going to show me with your Delver? You show me Lightning Bolt. That's a disaster. Because that means the next creature that I play is also just not going to make Deeproot Pilgrimage into a relevant card. Can this target itself? Another. Well, this is dazable, but it doesn't get bolted, I guess. Attempt creature. Oh, it's only the first one that says another. The other ones can do stuff. That seems like I'm going to get dazed. Nope, seek the beast. We are seeking the beast with a stern dismissal that can bounce either one of my relevant cards. My opponent's taking on something, but like it pretty clearly seems to me that it's DRC into stern dismissal, surveil, and go from there. Which thing are you bouncing? You're bouncing the creature. Yeah, that's fair. Wasteland, very good. I'm going to assume my opponent just clicked through attacks there. I think I play my flash creature in this turn cycle, so that Lightning Bolt doesn't get to be used for this mana. There's 3 card types in graveyard right now. It's like theoretically possible that I can ambush. Fuck. Oh, that's so bad. All right. I lose this land. This thing's going to come out, start scaling up. I have theoretical blockers on the ground, but I'm about to just get fucking bolted out of this game. So what, it's land, instant, artifact in graveyard over there. Got it. I imagine that if I miss this land drop, I just have to concede. And I don't even think that making this land drop is going to be good enough. Like, just assuming my opponent casts any spell that scales up the Druid, I'm taking 6 or more damage in this turn cycle, potentially 9. Yeah, this is good. All right. All right. That third Wasteland was brutal. I probably don't want Force of Will. My opponent is presumably going to bring in a giant pile of Pyroblasts. Although, if my mana is tight, like I'm kind of expecting it to be, maybe I just have to keep Force of Will, because I'm tapping out for 2 and 3 drops relatively frequently. Maybe I just have to keep this. This is also how I deal with a Murktide Regent anytime that I don't just have like opposition. My opponent also just has Stern Dismissal to bounce enchantments, which is surprisingly annoying. So I can play this game on basics early on. I have a decent mix of lands and spells. I hope this is okay. We're not gonna get a trop until kind of the last minute, I don't think. All right, what do you got? DRC is scary, Delver's okay, Ponder's great. Alright, it is the scary one. So this can fog a Murktide attack later on in the game. I don't think I'm going to do this immediately. I think we're just going to start jamming fish, and the fish are going to die, and it's going to be sad for me. Yep. That'll do. So we're only taking one this turn. That's not that bad. Cool. I think now I fetch a Trop and deploy a green card. This is just worse than Master of the Pearl Trident. Yeah. We are just splash damage as a blue-based creature deck for all of the Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblasts in the format that are directed at decks like Delver. So, okay, cool. We're only taking one again. We're fine with that. Nice. I think Double Lord. I'm maybe not supposed to show the cavern first. I assume one of these is going to get, like, bolted, blasted, unholy heated, something like that. That's fine. Still only 3 card types in graveyard. Okay. I mean, that's good. That is going to turn Daze back on for my opponent, potentially. Rough. Miraculously, still 3 types. My opponent has clicked through another attack step. Merfolk. We're just going to play the more expensive card around Daze. Force pitching Force. So I might end up actually putting the Yorion into my hand this game. Like, that is possible. Take a little bit of chip damage again. There's an island. Yorion to hand. Pass turn. And I will consider playing a Merfolk Trickster. Seek the Beast, sure. Force of Will and DRC. Slightly awkward. Yes. And a Brainstorm. That's fine. So I think my goal here is to use Merfolk Trickster as bait and a removal spell for a DRC, and then to actually resolve Yorion. So I don't care if this is a counterspell. I'm going to choose this still. This just keeps it from growing later if my opponent casts a spell. Alright, so we've successfully used this as a combat trick. 1 card remaining. It shouldn't be a removal spell, so I'm going to go ahead and crash on in. 15. Let's see if that last card is a Pyroblast and my opponent just didn't want to use it. Nope. We'll untap that. Return that. Temporarily shrinky dink that. I don't really know how and why everything has worked out reasonably for me. But it has. I am going to just thin a land from the deck. I don't want more. That's a generic 2/2. Am I the beatdown? Am I attacking for 6? I think so. I think this game is just going to get worse for me as time goes on. Alright. Opponent's at 9. I play a generic 2/2. Okay. Sure. Sure. I don't know that I like the timing of that Brainstorm. I think if you attack with the Questing Druid, I read your hand as weak and block with this some portion of the time. Murktide's a problem. And I don't have very many removal spells in the whole deck. Let's get Island Walk. Let's get Opposition. Land is not what I'm going for here. Even a Merfolk Trickster would have been very good. Delver Trigger. Doesn't flip. Didn't you Brainstorm last turn? Okay. Sure. I don't know what out I'm playing towards. I imagine I need to do this, take 8, go to 2. But I don't know how I beat going wide. Opposition isn't good enough anymore. Yeah, have 3 blockers, don't have the air covered. I am a little disappointed to that like with this loss, my opponent clicked through multiple combat steps, and it didn't matter because I'm playing Merfolk. This is a bit of a tough one. I can play Merfolk into Merfolk uncounterably. With any blue card drawn, I can back that up with Force of Will, but I do have 4 lands here. I'm going to keep this kind of operating under the assumption that if I miss, my Yorion just ends up being a reasonable thing to do. Like, that can be my blue card for Force of Will or my endgame gas. This is a slightly awkward play in that, like, for turn 1, this is not a 2-2. But Orcish Bowmasters usually doesn't come down on turn 1. Don't you dare say Goblin. Okay, that's fine. That's legal. That's allowed. That's all above board. Did not want to draw another land. Let's go aggro here. I'll just pick up a basic. And this Force of Will is largely a dead card, so I do just need to actually draw threats off the top. The Yorion is probably going to be too slow for whatever this is, whether it is like a dedicated human deck or some sort of like 60-card D&T nonsense. Oh, all right. So we are Boros Initiative. I lose the Lord. I only get to hit my opponent for 2. That's not great. And on top of that, my opponent also has like a very relevant creature type for initiative things. All right. That's not a problem right now. It could become a problem. That makes it less of a problem. So let's go back to 20. Continue to pick up islands in case we get mooned. Not like super likely or anything, but it is a thing. I get to bash in for 3. My opponent could lose their City of Traders to like play a new land and trade Walking Ballista for Master, but in that case, I'd really be trading these 2 for this, and I'm happy enough with that. Sure. This is initiative creature, though. Alright, that's scary. Force of Will does not get to save me from that, because Cavern of Souls is a good card. They pick up a Plains. Where's Island Duder? Island Duder sounds really good right now. Dismember's pretty hot. I'm like very actively happy with that. I've got 7 basics. Let's keep ripping them out of deck. So bam. Put Yorion to hand. Dismember. Targeting Seasoned Dungeoneer. And I think I just send both creatures here. Forge is a little awkward with Walking Ballista. But I think that's ultimately going to end up being okay. I think my path to victory is reduce my opponent's life total to 0 and put pressure on this Ancient Tomb. Fuck, it's another human. Caves of Chaos Adventurer is very bad. Although I think my opponent probably played this turn wrong. Like, I think you just attack, take the initiative, forge this up, and then play this to immediately go to trap, rather than doing what they did here. We'll see, though. I have Island Walk. I can't get through. I can play this to attempt to go through in the air. But I am fully reliant on the top of my deck. I have some very good draws, like Opposition in particular is very good right now. My opponent is dead to Yorion if they tap Ancient Tomb. So that's a thing. Yeah. That takes out the Yorion and leaves me in a really bad spot. Alright, they're going to ping my master out of the way. I don't know why that has to happen right now. Like, you can wait on that, because, like, your creature has trample. I'm at 5. And I just fully bottomed out, and I am just short of closing out this game, unfortunately. Like, I can technically stay alive by blocking this, but, like, with Walking Ballista here and this body still here, it's not happening. I don't really think I get to sideboard for this matchup either, unfortunately. Force of Negation hits some stuff, not a lot of relevant things. We're just going to whack submit. All right, I've kept an opening hand that allows me to play out a 2/2 on turn 1 and potentially give it Island Walk shortly thereafter to continuously take the initiative. I also can Tide Shaper an opposing land if it seems like that is a good thing to do. All right. Just past turn, just past turn. Let me give you an island as a treat. Damn it. All right, so that taps for all their colors. Archon, got it. So I have basics in hand, which is very convenient for this other ability here. That also does some stuff. I think I make my opponent's mana slightly worse here, rather than trying to push damage immediately. I just don't think I end up racing my opponent a lot of the time in the short term if I just play like Lord of Atlantis here. This is only 3 mana, so I dodge Seasoned Dungeoneer and Friends for a turn, unless my opponent has additional mana acceleration. We're chillin'. We're chillin'. What does that mean? Feels like a trap. I just don't know how. But I don't have a lot of agency here, so let's kind of hope things work. Solitude's pretty bad here. Okay. No, that's great. Holy shit, just they have nothing? All right. Am I going to eat like a fury for my hubris here? What are we doing? You're dead? That's neat. I think I just play a second one of these. Just really make sure that island... Well, I guess the island walk is... No, the island rock isn't relevant. Yeah, send them. I assume this is Solitude, which is fine. That is not the one I would have expected going here. Like, I think you hit a lord, and then you can block the other lord and kill it. Like, you hit this lord, this is a 2/2, this can block that, Solitude can block this, and I think you end in a better spot. I no longer have an island over there on the other side. My stuff's not just super unblockable anymore. Oh, that is a surprise. I do not think you are the beatdown currently. Merfolk? Maybe I should have Merfolk Trickstered, shut off this ability, play this untap, play Hexcatcher in this turn cycle, as well as Trickster, and then have Opposition Agent next turn. Or sorry, Opposition next turn, rather. Am I just forcing more damage here? I think that's fine. Opponent goes to 4, tapping Ancient Tomb becomes risky. Most cards other than Fury aren't really scary. Okay, opponent was very flooded. They only get 1 spell. That's fine. I'm gonna let that happen. 19. And you are passing turn. I think this is the cleanest way to a win. This is my 1 spell. I am going to tap Archon of Ameria. Tapping this. Now I'm going to go to combat. Attack with just this. My opponent needs Solitude. And then I don't offer a trade for both of my creatures. I think this. And then I just have more creatures that can potentially be lethal next turn. Like, I Merfolk Trickster, tap this thing. And then I can play the Speaker and tap down my opponent's blockers. Sure. Okay, so my opponent exiles this. Then I opposition tap down the Solitude. And my opponent ends up going to 1. Now this is all fine. I can also remove lifelink from this with Merfolk Trickster. I'm going to have options. All right, so they attack with Solitude. Yeah, I think this just leaves my opponent dead to board. Unless they've got, like, yet another Solitude. That's a weird draw. I think I'm just trying to kill my opponent here. So let's Merfolk Trickster. Tap the Archon. play Speaker as well. Opposition, tap that. Show me a third Solitude, I guess. Another flash blocker is not good enough. It's another Solitude. That is incredibly frustrating. I didn't have enough mana to, like, do my stuff and also put Yorion into hand. Yes. I think I let that happen. I think I also let the block happen if my opponent wants it. Yeah, my opponent had 3 Solitudes. That's frustrating. Yep. Sure. It's opposition. Tap down something. I'm gonna take 5 here. I need like the, I don't know, like the Deeproot opposition. I don't know that that's gonna keep up here. I think my opponent messed up a bunch this game, but I can't punish. Sure. Alright, there's another land drop. You can't play another spell. You sinkhold yourself. But it doesn't matter. Yeah, I just break on that draw, and I am dead. So we put up 2 wins with this brew. So a lot of times when I play a league and I realize my opponents are messing up a lot of stuff and I just have no ability to punish it, that is just a sign that my deck is just not objectively strong enough, and I think that's where we're at today. Opposition is theoretically cool, but not once in this league did we line up opposition alongside this. Not once in this league did we line Deeproot Pilgrimage up with this. We saw this do some things in a couple of rounds, but we also saw like lightning bolts and unholy heats destroying the other creature and then making this into a do-nothing card in the short term. Like the best thing this did was be a 2/4 that lived through lightning bolt. We did get a Thassa's Oracle, or rephrasing that, we stopped a Thassa's Oracle attempt with this card, which was cool. Maybe I should have played more copies of this card rather than some of the other stuff in the deck. I think I made a good go at making a deck that like is a Yorion opposition Deeproot Pilgrimage deck, but you know, the idea from the get-go is probably innately flawed, right? Like Merfolk is too weak to be a commonly played legacy deck, and to further dilute a deck that already isn't good enough by turning it into a Yorion deck, and also trying to throw a bunch of enchantments in the mix, I think you end up in a pretty bad spot. Mono blue also just, or this is technically a green deck as well, but I'm going to finish saying what I'm saying. Mono blue also just doesn't really have premier removal options. Like you get things like Dismember, Stern Dismissal, Brazen Borrower that are fine, but all kind of have some innate weaknesses. And I think the fact that like the main deck doesn't have a ton of like a high density of counterspells and other low to the ground disruption in the way that a 60 card Merfolk deck would that was more focused means that the sideboard has to kind of look like this sort of stuff to have better game versus combo decks. But then the result is we don't have things for fair decks, and we're not beating the fair decks. We got our ass absolutely whooped by fair Ancient Tomb decks today. So I think those are my thoughts. Nothing new has changed. Merfolk suck. End video. Nah, just kidding. If you do need to buy some Merfolk because you're a crazy person, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your next order. And folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. If you have any legitimate ideas about how to improve this deck list, go ahead and throw it down in the comments below. Have a great rest of the day. See ya!